Welcome to Making Our Way Forward, a podcast where we share compelling life stories and learn from the experience of everyday entrepreneurs. At NACCE, we celebrate diversity and invite you to join the conversation as we talk to entrepreneurs and leaders from all walks of life. We hope that by telling their stories, we bring you inspiration, empower you to take action, and ignite entrepreneurship in your community.
Welcome to Making Our Way Forward. I am Jeff Smith, Director of Innovation and Equity, and I'm excited to be here with Tariq Ansari. Tariq is the co-owner of Peakscaping, which is a business that is in a landscaping business that is in Wake County that he started with a friend. So we are excited to get to talk to him as a former graduate of Triangle Math Science Academy. He just graduated, and so he started his business as a student. And so we're excited to have him here as a student entrepreneur, and hoping to hear his story and hope it's inspirational to everyone out there. So again, welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm really happy you guys had me on this podcast. It's a nice experience.
Sure. Thank you, man. So we believe that a new generation of innovators, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and makers are emerging to shape the future of work. And I count you among them. So as I said, I'm super excited to talk to you today about your entrepreneurial journey. So first off, I want to ask you, what has been some of your childhood experiences that has helped you embrace the entrepreneurial mindset?
So I think first of all, the entrepreneurship I get from my mom completely. I think she's much more kind of that has that entrepreneurship type spirit, and that kind of translated to me. I guess from a young age, I was always trying to get little ways to make a little bit of side money, and even in early high school, I was selling baked goods, which I'm sure the admin wasn't too happy about, but I made my $40 a week, which was great, selling cinnamon rolls. So, it was always small little stuff like that where I tried to, make a few extra bucks without really having to go work at, a fast food place or, somewhere like that where I felt like I wouldn't really enjoy it. I always really like the freedom of having to do my own thing. And, a big thing for me was always, and even to this day, when I work is when I do something, I really want to enjoy it, because to me, that's when I get the best result. So when I'm able to do something that I really enjoy, I feel like I'm able to do a much, much better job.
Wow, thank you for that. So tell me a little bit more about what attracted you to entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship, or specifically like the landscaping side itself?
Both.
Okay. So in terms of entrepreneurship, I mean, it kind of just happened, to be fully honest. I've never had if I'm being honest, I've never really had a real job. Peakscaping was the first thing that I did. And as I said previously, it was always small little things on the side that I was trying to get, just to make a few extra bucks. But then after COVID kind of happened, of course, places weren't hiring. School was, you could say, out, since we were just doing online classes on Zoom for a few hours a day. So it kind of made me think a little bit, what am I going to do here? I can either sit here the whole summer and not do much, or I can find something and hopefully make something out of it. So landscaping was something that I wouldn't say had a lot of experience in, but of course, I was mowing the lawn outside. I was helping out my dad with small things here and there, and that kind of translated into something I'd want to do.
Okay. So here at NACCE, when we think about entrepreneurship, we think about it in terms of business creation, but also we think about it in terms of people who have an opportunity to find problems and provide solutions, and that can be really used as a way to provide solutions, not only in business creation, but in your own life. So I would love to ask you, how have you applied the entrepreneurial mindset to your own life? We know that during COVID, a lot of people dealt with, a lot of illness and emotional and mental turmoil. And so how have you apply the entrepreneurial mindset in your own life as it relates to walking through some of the things that many of us experienced?
Yeah, so COVID for me, I think, was a much different experience than a lot of people had, right? I think one of the biggest things for me that made it much better was I was able to start my own business. And so in terms of navigating COVID, it, I wouldn't say it was really an obstacle. It was more of a path for me to really grow. And then when we kind of talk about the problem solving and entrepreneurship side of things, in terms of problem solving, every single day with the business is just solving new problems. Things that'll come up even with the project when we're out there. We'll run into things literally every other hour, and it's a constant. You got to find a solution to that problem and keep going, and it just repeats over and over and over, and that really translates, I'd say, into life and into school and different things where it kind of gives you that determination of not only it gives you that determination, but it also gives you kind of that mindset of we have a problem and I'm not going to give up. I'm rather going to try to find a solution to it and then move forward.
Okay. So speaking of problems and solutions, I know it can be hard to work with people sometimes. So you are actually a co-owner. So, and your, I think your buddy, his name is Luis.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that okay? So tell me a little bit about how you all have been able to work together to start your business. What's that been like?
Yeah, so we started last year. This is actually probably a 1 year anniversary in business. Actually, I think we started last year. We formed the LLC in June of last year. It must have been around these 2 weeks actually. So my side is I'm much better at the labor. I've done a lot of research and I know the technical kind of way to handle these bigger projects, but I'm not good at computers and technology and none of that. That's just not my aspect of things. Luis, that's kind of what he brings to the table. He's much better at that. You had mentioned you saw our website. He took care of that whole process. He's put all the pictures up on there and created SEO and all that. And as I said, that's just not my area at all. So when you bring those two kind of aspects together, the labor and then the kind of the back end type of things, it works really well together.
Very nice. So one of the things that we oftentimes focus on is uh, related to the entrepreneurial mindset is growth mindset. So people who, believe that they can try and try and try again. And so, in what ways have you kind of developed that growth mindset, and how is that reflected maybe in the various projects and hobbies that you find yourself doing?
Yeah, so I think right now we're still really small, right? We'll do maybe 1 to 2 crews that are running a week, and I think that's great. Obviously, that's great. I get to make some money. I get to grow the company a little bit, but obviously, looking in the future, that's not the way the company can keep growing, right? With just 1 or 2 crews working. So it really makes you think of how can I grow this? So when we sit down and we look at next year, we kind of start to think of how can we start to get other crews and other project managers to start taking on responsibility themselves, and then kind of working kind of not I wouldn't say working by themselves, but operating their own crews, and then we start collecting profit through that. So the growth mindset, it kind of I wouldn't say it's forced, but you kind of either run with it or you just let it go, right? And as I said, if you just have one crew where you're just doing all the work yourself, that's great, but you can only do that for 1 to 2 to 3 years until you'll just get burned out at a certain point. Um, Especially with something with landscaping, when you're working on the 95-degree heat, you can only make so much money yourself. And really, when you think about it, the way to really make a lot of money and to grow is just to get other people and give them more responsibility and then kind of start branching off like that.
Okay, thank you for that. What's one of the crazy experiences that you've had thus far working in your landscaping business that is appropriate to share here?
Um, my business partner ran a bobcat into the truck the other day, so that was a little bit interesting. We've seen a few snakes. Uh, we've had mulch flying out of our beds going on the highway.
Oh
There's
wow.
there's a few things here and there.
Okay. So y'all have a lot going on. Um, Let me ask you this. What personality traits would you say have helped you most in being a successful entrepreneur?
Um, I think I said this previously when we first started, is that when I'm passionate about something, I tend to work a lot better. When I do that, when I do the thing that I'm passionate about. So I think just having passion for it is the biggest one. Because when you get out of bed at 5:30 in the morning, if you really don't want to do it, it's not going to work out too well, right? And
Yeah.
if you have that passion, you're really able to get out of bed and get going, and then continue that process and really be able to have a good mindset when you're doing things out in the day. I think that's one. And then the other thing I think is just leadership, especially when you're leading crews of 4 to 5 people, then you start having other crews working at the same time. You really have to find that quality of leadership in yourself and figure out how to balance that dynamic of different people, because you'll hear everybody say one of the hardest things is dealing with different people and their different personality traits. So as a leader, you have to figure out what's the best way to do things and what's the best way to handle people.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. What would you say prepared you for that, to lead in that way?
I'm not sure if there's anything that can quite prepare you for it apart from just I'd say just patience and trying your best to understand. Because there will always be problems, no matter how much you try to streamline things, no matter how much you try to get things right and plan. There will always be things that pop up. I'll go to Lowe's 3 times in a single day, even when I plan out the entire day. There's always things. So you have to be patient and understand that things happen sometimes. And then 2 is kind of understanding people's mindsets, right? So we have certain people where we'll see that they have leadership qualities, and it doesn't make sense to have them keep working at a lower level. We understand that this person, they have the ability and skill and mindset to be to be brought up to a leadership position. So there's no reason to keep them there, and you can tell they'll put in more work, they'll be more motivated, they'll talk about how they want to do their own projects and stuff like that. You kind of have to understand that this is somebody who can be really valuable to the company, and there's no reason that just keeping them there. And then one more thing about kind of understanding things is just respecting people. I think that's a big thing, and especially me being 18, I don't automatically receive respect like that. Right? Respect is something that's earned, especially as I said, because I'm 18. So with employees, you have to or I feel as though you have to make sure that they're happy first of all, because for me, if I'm happy when I do a good job, I'm usually happy. I think that's the same for a lot of employees of mine. So I think as long as a big thing is if you respect them and treat them well, they'll do a much better job for you.
Wow, that's great advice. So one of the things I heard you say is that passion is a motivator for you. Can you talk a little bit more about some of your passions other than for your current business, and how they might be directed towards entrepreneurial pursuits in the future?
Yeah, I think apart from that, one of my biggest passions is just the possibility of financial freedom, which I think is something you hear people talk a lot about. It's just the possibility of being able to sit back one day and kind of let other people run the show while you just sit back on your island and Aruba and chill out. Obviously, that's a dream for all of us, but I think just a drive and willingness to want to have that type of freedom is really something that kind of motivates me to do this type of thing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper. So you have all the money that you need, and you have had all the time that you need to relax. So I want to know, what do you do then?
I think I think you end up finding a new passion and pouring yourself into it again. I think it's funny how that works, because I was actually thinking about this morning when I was having breakfast. Was a lot of times you think, I wish I could just make all the money in the world and go chill out on an island. But when you see these people who make all the money in the world, they usually find some new passion and then pour themselves into it again. So it's not just you finish and you relax. I think you always find something new, especially if you have that spirit. You always find something new that you really like, and then you'll kind of go all the way back into it again.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so interested in your thinking in terms of leadership development, because you talked about how being able to recognize people's talents and then promoting them. So what would you say to another student entrepreneur that's trying to pursue something similar? How would you encourage them? What would you say? What kind of lessons or advice might you give them?
I mean, so in terms of leadership, what I can say is based off my limited experience, what I look for at least is I think the best are people who have kind of a very technical mindset, and then you kind of try to get them, because usually technical people who are very technical are not, born leaders, I say, and at least what I've noticed. So I think trying to get them to take on more leadership positions is really where you want to be. And I think they start to take to it a little bit naturally, but you got to give them a little bit of a push, but they'll get there. It's hard to say what exactly makes it. I think just the biggest one is being able to solve problems, because that's a big thing. That's a big part of what managers do, right? They just try to solve problems and solve conflicts and stuff like that. So when I'm working on the field with a few people and I see these guys who run the problems and just solve them by themselves, and they're just like, all right, I ran into this, picked it up, solved it, on to the next thing. To me, that's a really big sign of leadership, because if you can do that on your own, you can probably do that with a bigger group of people. So it's just responsibility. You always have the guys who will do, I wouldn't say the bare minimum, but they'll do their job and they'll get by. They'll do a good job. But you have those. You'll notice there's a few guys who will come up to you, give you their own kind of solution to the problem, and and you have to also be willing to listen. As a boss, you got to be really, really willing to listen to these guys, because they can be the ones who can really propel your business to the next level. So they'll come up to you, they'll be like, I got a solution to this problem, and it could be a super awesome solution, and you realize, wow, this is way better than even what I was thinking. So I think just having that problem solving mindset, and then as well as kind of passion and willing to work, and just that responsibility will really kind of take you to that next level.
Yeah, man, I really love how you value people, and and how you make reference to people having gifts and talents and being able to cultivate that. I mean, honestly, I think, just thinking to my own experience, it's like that's the type of boss that you want, someone who can identify and recognize your talents and then help cultivate that. So I appreciate you sharing that. So what has been your biggest failure as an entrepreneur, and what did you learn from it?
Uh, I got to think about that one for a second.
Okay.
I think not giving 100%. Because that when it comes to landscaping, people are giving you money to do things that they want to have done on something that doesn't really matter that much, if we're being fully honest, right? Things like grass, mulch, retaining walls, patios, that stuff, it isn't a necessity. It's something that they just want, from their pure desire. So if you walk in there with that, I'll get it done, it'll look okay, that type of mindset, it's not going to lead anywhere, right? You got to come in there with, I want to go above and beyond, because not only is that what the customer expects, but that's what'll allow you to get those referrals. And that takes me to another point. Is one of the biggest things in landscaping is just word of mouth, and probably in business as well, as just word of mouth. If one person tells another person, that person tells three people, it just keeps on going. That can work for your benefit, or it can work for your downfall.
Right.
So if you walk in with that, kind of 50% mindset of, I'm just going to do what I need to get past. You got to remember that the customer doesn't really need it; they want it. And if they see that you're not doing, if they see that you're doing, kind of a half-butt job, they're just not going to appreciate that at all. So that was I think that was one of my biggest learning moments. Is there, when it's 95 degrees in the middle of summer, there are times when your mental strength gets tested, right? You kind of want to switch it up and go home. What you got to realize is that it doesn't work like that, right? Because if you do a 50% job, or just the bare minimum, that word of mouth will just carry over and kind of ruin your company.
Yeah. What about, I'm going to flip that and say, what has been your biggest success as an entrepreneur thus far?
I'd say it's so this year. Last year when we first started, it was a little bit harder to land jobs, and just because we were starting to get our name out there. And this year we really started picking up a lot of jobs, and we actually finished this retaining wall job. It was I think a 200-foot retaining wall job. We finished. It took us 2 weeks. And on that project, I worked with two guys. And as I worked with them, I started to see them, kind of pick up the skills and kind of pick up that leadership I was talking about. And to me, that was one of the biggest successes, is that I was able to get them to take on their own responsibility. Because as I said, you can only do so much work yourself. When you have other people that are able to take on that responsibility and leadership, to me, that's a huge achievement. So I'd say that's my biggest success, is that I was able to, teach people new things that they can do on their own, and, kind of ingrain that level of attention to detail and responsibility into them.
Yeah. In our culture, oftentimes entrepreneurs are celebrated not just for their kind of entrepreneurial skills and ability, but they also provide like thought leadership. So I would love to hear just some of your ideas about, just things that you are passionate about, problems that you see, things that are going on in our community that you want to impact, just any areas of thought leadership that you might be able to share as we're entering into the mind of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I'm most passionate about is getting people kind of into the workforce. When I see people who are asking for money or homeless, to me, giving money is great, and I always try to give either food or money or gift card. But when I get home, I'm like, that didn't really make a difference, right? What they need is someone who will bring them from here, get them a job, get them an apartment, a car, and elevate them into the community, into the actual workforce. So something I'm looking to do next year is actually we're trying to get more lawn crews going, and I'd really like to take underprivileged people and get them into the crew, or something my mom was actually mentioning was refugees. There's a lot of refugees that have come from Syria and some of these other Palestine, some of these other countries where things haven't been super good with the government. So I'd really like to bring some of those people kind of into the team and let them take on that responsibility and let them grow as well.
Yeah, I love that, man. Speaking of that, who are your influencers? Like, who do you look to for inspiration, and who do you read, and who do you watch? Who are some of those people that impact you in that way?
I think it's varied over the years. I think when I first started working, there was a guy. His name is Stefan Taylor. He runs his own landscaping service called TLS, Taylor Expertise, or TES, Taylor Expertise Service. And he was one who kind of taught me the basics, and his attention to detail was phenomenal. I mean, he would not leave a job site without cleaning everything up, make sure everything was tidy. And I'd say that's one of my weak points, because I'm like, I'll be here back the next day. It doesn't matter. I'll just kind of leave it a little bit of a mess. But he was kind of one of the first people I kind of looked up to and said, wow, I want to be like this. I want to have that type of attention to detail. But now that I feel like I've kind of achieved that, and I've kind of started to build the company a little bit up, there's a guy named Corey Ballard, and he runs Perfect Cut Lawn Care. It's a lawn care company in I think Michigan or somewhere around there. And so he started Perfect Cut, I think, when he was like 25. And up till this point, I think he has 200 lawn crews. And, I remember watching a YouTube video of his facility, and he had, this huge, it must have been like a 10,000 square foot facility. And he had like 20 trucks in there with all the same logos and everything. And he was like, every morning the guys come in, they take their trucks and they go out. He was like, I don't have to deal with anything. I was like, that's kind of where you want to be at, right? Is where the guys come in, they go deal with their own things, they come back, and you're like, wow, good day, guys. I think often what happens is we see that end product, but we don't see what happens, in the middle and on the way to, building that. In another one of his videos, I think he mentioned the emotional and mental stress he took on trying to build up to that. And he was like, it's done things to my physical and mental being that can be reversed. Whenever you watch any of his videos, I was like, I'm hyped up on 4 Red Bulls right now. So I'm sure there was a strenuous path along the way. And then after he created that successful lawn business that has, I think, 200 crews that go out, he created another business that's called Ballard Products, and they sell kind of accessories for lawnmowers and landscape and stuff like that. So he's kind of one of those examples of what I was mentioning before. Of it's kind of just a continuous cycle. You succeed, you kind of lay back for about 3 minutes, and then you're like, all right, let's go back into it. I found something new that I really like, and he kind of just jumped right back into there and started that second company.
Yeah. Do you see your current business spinning off into anything new and exciting?
Maybe a few years down the line, we just got to get going with the few crews first, because as I said, at this point it's still me and one other crew doing all the work. So I mean, hopefully, yeah, but I think I'd be content with once we get a few a few dozen lawn crews going, I think that'd be pretty cool for me.
We one of the things we do here in NACCE is try to promote and support student entrepreneurs. So I'll just ask you, from your point of view, just graduating and then about to enter into college, what are some of the things that you think would be helpful, would have been helpful, or could be helpful to you as a student entrepreneur, that someone like our organization could provide for you?
Um, well, I think our biggest challenge in the beginning was marketing. And I'm not sure if that's something you guys will be able to help people out with, but I think just getting our name out and building our brand was a huge thing. Because now we kind of have a little bit of brand recognition within the Apex area. So I think that's more something that you got to do yourself, and I don't know if you can get any help from anybody. But I think just marketing and kind of building the website is something that just people in general don't really know how to do. I was lucky enough to have a business partner who knows how to do all that type of stuff. But if I didn't, I think that'd really be something that I would be looking for, or that I'd be looking for, is somebody who could, or a team of people who could help me out with business, marketing, all that kind of back end stuff.
Okay. And finally, I want to ask you, what would just someone who is out there and they might be, thinking about trying to pursue something entrepreneurially, but they are hesitant. What would you tell them? What kind of advice would you give them, or direction?
I'd say make sure you're stable first, and then pursue your passion. I think a lot of times what you'll see on social media is forget everything, pour yourself 100% into your passion, eat crap for 3 years, you just barely survive. And maybe some people want to do that, but I'm much more, have your stable job, have your stable income, and then if you want to start your side hustle, start that. You get more passionate about it, start to succeed, then kind of transition more into that, rather than just ditching college and saying, all right, I'm just going to do this 100%. Because um, because if you just ditch your job, there's no income anymore. And if you just ditch everything and say, I'm going to go with this 100%, I believe in it, that's great. You have to believe in it, but at the same time, you also got to make sure that you have stable income, and make sure that you're stable first of all.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your future goals in terms of, I know you're getting ready to start taking courses and such. I know you've already taken some college courses, right? Because I guess you did dual enrollment.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what does that look like for you?
So I want to major in finance, and then maybe get my MBA after that, which is weird if this happens to take off. But there's kind of two plans at this point. One is this stays fairly small, maybe two or three crews that I just manage here and there. Number one would be, you have a few small crews along with my corporate job, which I hope to get, which would be in finance, and then get my MBA down the line, and continue up that ladder. Number two would be this takes, I get my degree in finance, and then this takes off, going through college, and I just decide to do this full time. Um, Either one sounds, I think I'd rather do the second one, just because that sounds a little more exciting to me. But either one I'd be super grateful for.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And there's a lot of room for entrepreneurship in the financial industry as well,
Yes,
Yeah. So finally, we usually ask people to kind of share with us a quote, or some type of kind of ending insight or something, as we close out. So I'll ask you to do the same. Is there a quote or something that you would like to share with us as we end the podcast?
I'd say just be passionate about what you're doing, because that'll get you the best results. If you're doing something that you hate, you probably won't be doing. At least for me, I probably wouldn't be doing too good of a job at it. But if you're doing something you love, you'll get much more, bang for your buck, or you'll get much more out of your time.
Well, thank you so much for that. Like I appreciate your energy and your passion. Very encouraged by just your thought process, and how you talk about leadership, and how you kind of lean into these things that you're talking about. So I think a lot of people, particularly student entrepreneurs, will be super inspired by hearing you, and it's our desire to be able to help support and to promote them and to promote faculty and staff who are also helping to support student entrepreneurs who are creating businesses, but also beyond that, just solving problems in our world, because there are a lot of problems to be solved, as you know. So again, thank you so much for being a part of Making Our Way.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. It means a lot.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that listening to this podcast will help you to explore the many ways we might define entrepreneurship. Join us every other Wednesday for more episodes as we celebrate opportunity, learn from one another, and grow together. Subscribe to this podcast, connect with us on social media, and learn more about today's speakers at nacce.com/podcast. We look forward to making our way forward together with you.
Have you heard about our latest book, Impact Ed: How Community College Entrepreneurship Creates Equity and Prosperity? This is our roadmap for building back better in 50 states and globally. In each chapter, we share the inspiring stories of everyday entrepreneurs and explain how community colleges play a crucial role in their success. Visit us at nacce.com/impacted to order your copy now and join us in this work.